First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This was an idea that kind of came about over the last couple of weeks to just have a kind of a small, intimate gathering based, starting off of NIL and kind of pulling right over into just personal branding and what that means to all of us. So I'll introduce the guests in a minute, but I think that this whole thing kind of kicked off, as many of you were in college today, on June 30th, Kellen, right? Yeah, June 30th we had a talk. All of a sudden on June 30th, an email went out, or the news went out, that NIL college students could now start getting endorsements. What more to do than to call Kellen within about 4 minutes? I've known Kellen for about 12 years. CM, over to my alma mater, NMH, over to Davidson, and now is going to be playing for Kentucky this year. And the idea in the news was all about how do we become the first brand to be able to sign an athlete. And it was, we didn't know what the next day was going to happen, meaning like probably 6 to 7 hours later, but we knew it was going to be kind of madness. And it was, like, starting at midnight, you started to see, I think it was college hunks moving junks, it was already signed athletes, and some others were going, but there was no footwear apparel. And then later on, July 1st, Kellen going to compliance over at Kentucky about 16 times to get this done. And we did the first NIL deal for any footwear company in the country. So it was a very proud moment for ISlide, knowing our history as well, like just kind of even meant that much more. And it's just, since that day, and I think everyone that knows anything about NIL, they know it's just completely the wild, wild west right now. Nobody knows what's going on with it. No one knows how to use it or capitalize on it or understand it. And tonight really isn't about NIL, because no one still knows kind of what's going on, but it's more about the power of branding for yourself. And for me, it was really about to bring 3 friends who I've known for a long time and kind of epitomize unbelievable personal branding. So, by the way, I'll start with Scal. So Lamar and I were just coaching AD at Milton Academy. We were just talking, and you might see like a beautiful padding behind the hoop down here. You might see a couple of pads on either side that don't have the same color, and people were like, "What's wrong with you?" Well, we weren't supposed to have those extra pads. Scal went up for a layup, went through the wall, and Lamar was there that night, and we had to add some padding to the right. One morning we had Bruce Brown. Right, Pierre? He went through the wall on this side, so luckily he didn't get hurt, considering he just got a nice paycheck from the net. So, but Scal, 2008 world champ, appreciate the banner gifting he gave up above. 11 years in the league. I think for anybody up here, I think to make any college team is impressive. To make any pro team is absolutely incredible. And to stay in the league for a long time is absolutely amazing. And Scal is a guy who could have just been known as another guy in the league, but he branded himself in a way that was known. He's one of the greatest voices in basketball today. And I think with everything that he's done over his career, including the Scal's Vodka Lemonade I put out there for him, I don't know, maybe somebody will win that tonight, potentially. But brand new, but Scal in the basketball world has been amazing. Kristine Lilly, the most capped women's soccer player of all time. If anyone doesn't know what cap means, because I learned this last time, it was more professional and Olympic Games played of anybody else in the world. 2 gold medals, silver medal, and just an integral part of growing the entire women's game of soccer. So to have her be somebody who kind of was part of a team that brought, you know, women's soccer to light in a major way, has seen so many different avenues and so many incredible things in the journey. So it's another amazing person that we have. And lastly, Don Hasselback, 9 years in the pros, played for the Pats. You know the name, as Robert said right here. A few sons played in the NFL as quarterbacks. 8 grandkids, all playing sports, of course. But I'll end before I pass this off to Scal, as everyone here or many people here are starting their journey. And this could be in sports and life and a lot of things. So I was a bartender, I was a landscaper my whole life. One day I woke up, I was a junior in college. I said, all right, I need to figure out my life. I need to do something. I applied for an internship. My internship was at Reebok because I read that you could play basketball at work, and I really thought that was awesome. Thus, why we have a basketball court at ISlide. It's not a full court, but it's getting there. So I'm 23, 2 years old. Yeah, 23. I might have taken a little bit extra time in college. And I went for this interview, and my interview would be working for 3 guys, one of which was for Don, another one Matt Beerson, marketing, another one Scott Utech in sales. My interview was with Scott. I had no marketing background, I had no business background, I had no background in anything professional whatsoever. He's going through the interview with me, and he says, you have absolutely no marketing background, exact words, why in the fuck would I ever hire you? I'll be first to work, I'll be last to leave, all these things. All of a sudden, he saw that I played basketball, and he invited me to a 6 a.m. intramural game at Reebok. I had the game of my life, and he gave me the internship. So Don had 20 years at Reebok post-NFL. I had about 12 years at Reebok before starting ISlide. But the point of today is everyone's journey is going to start. Everyone's journey is going to have all these kind of different roads that they go past. But who you are, the branding that you are, and the credibility and the integrity that you show from start to finish in your life is going to get you to where you want to go. And I wanted tonight to be learning from 3 amazing people. So with that, pass it on to Scal.
What does a game of your life look like? No, really, I've seen you put together about a good 1 minute, but nothing more than that.
Game was to 21, 3 points, 3 boards, a couple of assists, and charge.
Justin delivers. One thing about Justin, I know this for a fact. He might suck throughout the entire game, but if it's a game winner, I am rolling with that guy right there. All right, so there's something we always talk about in branding. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't actually know what branding is either, and I don't know, how do you get to the point where you have your own vodka or you're on TV and people pay you to do stuff, right? But we're gonna figure this out together because we're around smart people, and we'll try to figure out from you guys as well, what is branding. So, Don, I wanna start with you. So how do you differentiate yourself from other people from the sporting standpoint, growing up, getting that opportunity?
Wow. Here's the thing, I come from a different era where the only way that you branded yourself was by your play. There was no social media, you didn't have a whole bunch of people following you. It was just about how you were as a player. How good are you as a player? For example, at Reebok, one of the things that I'll say this, the first team that we signed, and let me back up a little bit. This is the Wild West, so you know it. And just so you understand, in college football and basketball, it was the Wild West also. My first meeting was with a coach by the name of Lou Holtz. I paid Lou Holtz directly from Reebok. That money, it didn't go through the university. It just got blessed by the university, but that's how the deals were done. The deals were done the same way. When you wanted to do a deal with Emmitt Smith, because Emmitt Smith's really good. Same way when we signed Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, and that's how it worked. But it was all based off of, why would you sign Notre Dame? Because they're Notre Dame. And you really didn't sign Notre Dame. What you did was you signed Lou Holtz to wear the Reebok brand. Because at the time, if you remember, and probably you guys wouldn't remember, but back in '91, there was a battle between Nike and Reebok was actually a pretty strong brand. And we were launching something called the Pump. And they had Air, we had the Pump, and you're just trying to brand yourself so that more, here's the deal. When you're in that business, when you're in footwear and apparel, it's pretty simple. We just want to sell stuff to you guys. We want to sell you shoes. I mean, let's go back to the ultimate case. Everybody wants to be like Mike, right? Every basketball player thinks they're Michael Jordan. Like, why did Michael Jordan become so great? Why did when you look at the numbers in basketball, he's the number 2 brand. The number 1 brand's Nike. The number 2 brand that's why they have Jumpman going to colleges and they're putting logos with Jumpman. He branded himself because of being a great player. I mean, so if that answers your question, it's kind of like, Michael Jordan didn't have followers. It's like people weren't liking stuff that he was posting, but it's a new generation. It's like, it's a different world out there. I think that you guys all know this. You'll see someone you're following. It's like, oh man, that dude's got 500,000 followers. That's pretty impressive. It's a different world, I think, when it comes to branding yourself that way.
Yeah, Kristine, did you feel like obviously you didn't have followers or anything like that at the time? It wasn't, you couldn't quantify that, but how did you separate yourself out from, like creating, your individual brand?
Well, I think too, a different time, and I think it also being a female athlete. When I was first on the U.S. national team, we weren't getting paid. I was still in college, so I couldn't. But then when I was out of college and we could finally get payment, we weren't getting any. So when I graduated from North Carolina in '93, my first paycheck was I signed a sponsorship with Adidas, and it was heaven because that was my livelihood. So basically, for the female athletes from, I would say, the 90s till, probably, I retired in 2010. That was where we made our money. It wasn't necessarily from the game. But along with what Don says, you were getting that sponsorship because of who you were and what you did. So you still needed to do the work. You still needed to be on a team that was being successful because that's what was going to help you be successful. So it was a balance between who you were, what you did in the field, and then finding ways to make that money off the field because we weren't getting paid on. So we built soccer to kind of where it is now. But I think if you look at these athletes now, they're making more money off of the soccer field than what they're getting paid. Different from the NBA players, the baseball players, and the football players. So I think the majority, they get their salary, and then the sponsorship deals are like a bonus. But ours were basically, the sponsorship deals were our livelihood.
Yeah. And who controlled that? Did you guys have someone that, hey, we have this sponsorship deal, we have Adidas for you, and we have these other things? Do they have to align with the way that you believed and the way that you lived your life?
So we had individual agents. So I had an agent that would work on sponsorship deals with us, and then through the national team, as we started to realize that we were started to win, so we won the World Cup and the Olympics, and then we had our own marketing group within U.S. Soccer, which we had a lawyer look over. So we basically had criteria within them, which we shared a rotation. So if a sponsor came up and wanted one of us, there would be a list to go down, because I was playing with players like Mia Hamm and Julie Foudy and Michelle Akers that were drawn a little bit higher than I was in marketing. So we wanted to make sure everyone got a little taste of it, so we'd have a rotation for the team aspect. But individually, all of our athletes all had their own agents that did that.
So let's talk about goals. What are your goals to translate not making money in sports into making money in sports? Was that a hard transition? Could you quantify it, looking at something and saying, yes, this is how I'm going to take my brand, quote unquote, and turn it into a living?
That's a good question. I think the challenge is not everyone is. I was going to bring some logos and show them to you. Does anyone really know what Russell Wilson's logo looks like? Russell Wilson's pretty famous, at least in Seattle, and he's won some Super Bowls. He's trying to brand himself. He's just not doing a great job, or someone's not doing a great job of branding. A lot of guys, Emmitt Smith had a logo. Obviously, Tiger Woods has a logo. It works. When we were at Reebok, Shaquille, we signed Shaquille O'Neal right out of LSU, and Shaq, he was ripping rims off, and he was easy to make that logo of Shaq, and we know what the Jumpman looks like. But I think maybe here's what happened at Reebok, though. So Reebok was purchased by Adidas, or Adidas, as they say. So they kicked Reebok out of the sporting world. So they took all the colleges away, they took all the athletes away, basically took the NBA away from us, took everything away from it. It was kind of like, hey, I bought your car, and then I start taking parts off of your car. So Reebok got pushed into the CrossFit lane. So I was asked to go to CrossFit and find the top 60 CrossFit athletes, 30 men, 30 women in CrossFit, and see if we could sign them. We're coming from the NFL world where agents everywhere, these guys are sharp. I mean, they do big deals. So now I'm dealing with moms and dads with CrossFit athletes. I'm dealing with women in Germany and Iceland and Sweden, guys in Tennessee, talking to dads. It's like, I mean, it was the Wild West. When I say, and it's probably going to be very similar for you, I don't know that the hot agents, the top agent in the NHL or NBA is going to come chasing you guys. I don't think the agents, I think the marketing agents are allowed. I don't even think the schools were going to know how to handle it or deal with it. So I think everyone's got to kind of walk slowly. I don't think the NCAA understands exactly how it's going to work. And I think people that go and get some deals, get things going. Here's what I did. And I said this when I got on the CrossFit side of it. We had no idea how it was going to go. No one really was into CrossFit. CrossFit was taking off, but that's a community in itself. But it had a lot of popularity, and it had looked like it had some staying power because they would compete. Well, some of the parents wanted to sign these long-term deals. They wanted to sign like a 5 or 10 year deal. I'm like, no. Here's the deal. You're going to hate me if I sign you to a 5 or 10 year deal. Why don't we do this? Let's sign a 2-year deal. Let's see how it goes. And back then, this is how it was. It was $10,000 in cash, and I'll give you $10,000 in product. And not every CrossFit athlete was brandable. There were probably, of the 60, there were probably, to be fair, maybe 6.
What made him brandable?
Looks. Really, on the women's side, there was 2 things in CrossFit on the women's side. If you were too bulky, women hated you, which is kind of weird, but if you were really good, if you were bulky, you were pretty good. But if there was a fine line there between really being attractive and then these guys and what was happening, guys were posting videos of their workouts, which let them be more brandable. And that's a different world. Like for us, it was like, wow, this dude's got 1 million followers. I mean, how does a CrossFit woman out of Iceland have 1 million followers? Well, she does, but she does workouts and she does things that people want to see what she's doing. Back to the very basics that I started with. You know what? She was really good too. She would win the games, 2-3 times, 3 years in a row or something like that. Because I think ultimately, you still have to be great. You have to be great. I mean, we know because you said Julie Foudy. Julie Foudy was a Reebok athlete at the time, and I remember when she would come to meetings, and she was attractive, she was well-spoken, she would come and address people at sales meetings. I mean, she would come and she was personable. Because at the end of the day, as a company, no matter what company, you're trying to sell stuff, and you're an ambassador for that company to try to help them sell stuff. But now flip the coin on the other side. You're trying to make a few bucks. I mean, I went to the University of Colorado, so I graduated in '77. Back then, you got nothing. I mean, we played in the Orange Bowl against Ohio State. I think we got a cheesy sweatsuit, maybe a pair of shoes, I don't know, some duffel bag or something, but that was it. And then you find out later on, because I find this out because I'm doing the deals, if a head coach in college football wins a national championship, we pay him $1 million. Like, whoa, the dude didn't even play. He got $1 million from Reebok or from Nike. But that's just how the sport worked. That's why I say when the NCAA is looking at this thing going, wow, how's this going to work out for some of these guys? And you have to figure out if you're good enough to brand yourself to be saleable. And you have to kind of brand yourself to the companies, to whatever company that might be. I mean, when Nike jumped into soccer because Adidas was the brand, was the ultimate soccer brand. But when Nike came in and they started just like buying everybody up, just overspending and buying people. So I don't know if that helps, but I think it's just a different world, and you have to understand the world as it exists today, not as it exists when Justin and I were working at Reebok and chasing the Mannings or Emmett Smith or whoever that athlete might be.
Kristine, how would you build up your social media accounts? Doing it now, starting from zero, not everything that you know, because obviously you didn't have it back then.
Well, I think I'm still in the process. I mean, I'm still, I may have been somewhat a brand, but I'm not a brand like Alex Morgan's a brand right now. I mean, like we were talking about, she has over 1 million followers, and companies just go to her and say, okay, can you post this? And it's done. So she's built that to where she is, so now that she can, accept and decline whatever she wants. I'm still in the process of building, and obviously I retired in 2010, so I think my brand building is like kind of past or where, if you just look at the soccer world, but what I'm trying to do off the field with writing a book and being genuine me, that's trying to build the brand I have. I run a soccer camp that I've done for 25 years in Connecticut that I've run every summer. So I would say my brand isn't probably so big there, but what I have branded now, it makes me a living. So I think you have to find the fine line is what do you want out of it first when you're looking at this? Because anytime you do something and you get something, it's going to be more responsibility on your end. So more dollars, more this, you're going to maybe have to do this, this, and this. So I think you have to look at what do you want out of it in the end? Is it just about making money? Is it about trying to play professionally? Is it this? So you have to figure out what you want to build along with that. And this twofold with it too is the reason why you have a brand is what you're doing. So whatever sport you're in, you're creating that by the sport you're in. So if you want to continue that and you want to continue to play, you have to be good. And you got to train, you got to continue to be good, because once you lose where you are, if you're not in the starting lineup, if you're not that, then it could change how your brand works. So I think there's a balance of trying to figure out what you want out of it and what you're willing to give to it, both on the field and off the field.
Can I just add this? I think one of the things that's important is that there is so much money in sports, it's scary. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was talking a little bit about this before. In the NFL, because there's a Players Association, so every player that plays in the NFL is part of the Players Association, you get a royalty off of every jersey that is sold. The example would be, so back when Favre was with the Packers, so you got a home jersey and an away jersey. And sometimes they do the throwback, so you get a couple platforms to sell from. So now Brett Favre gets traded to the New York Jets. It's New York City. I mean, it's the Jets, home and away. Oh yeah, and by then, after that, he gets traded to the Vikings, home and away Vikings. We are selling so many stinking Favre jerseys, it's scary. He's making millions of dollars off of just his jersey selling. Or he gets a royalty. You know what a college kid gets off a jersey? 0. So if you're a star at the University of Alabama and they're selling your jersey, you get nothing. It's a different world. I think it's great. How many players, it's going to go right back to where we started from. The great players' jerseys are going to sell. The guys that aren't great, they're not going to sell. But I think it's like that's why I think it's going to be hard. Part of it's going to be hard because here's what I do know in the pros. Because my son played 18 years and he's bounced around, 10 years in Seattle. You get tugged in a bunch of different ways on a variety of things. I have an example here. A friend of mine that left Reebok, he just does marketing. He has Dak Prescott. We see tons of Dak Prescott commercials, right? Sometimes these commercial shoots, they're like 3-4 day shoots. You got to go. My wife was in a Campbell Soup commercial with my son. That's a 5-day shoot. You get paid to do it, but to your point earlier, it's like there's a commitment to doing this stuff. If you're training and you're shooting commercials, you ain't training a whole lot because you're shooting commercials. There's just an aspect that you need to be ready for when it comes to, if you're that kind of athlete and you take it to the next level. You know, Kentucky basketball. I'm a kid that grew up in Ohio. I understand what Kentucky basketball means. There's a lot of demand on you. Like, look at Boston College right now, all the colleges. The college kids have been on campus all summer training, getting ready for the next football season. Well, if you had a commercial shoot, I'm not really sure how that was going to work. So there's going to be some tricks through this whole thing. And I do think, too, that there's going to be a lot of family members that think they can represent you and do some of this stuff. I'm going to say this. I don't know about that. So I like personally, and I say this because I've dealt with CrossFit athletes and dealt with professional football players and their agents, I like someone that really knows what's going on.
What are some of the things that they should look out for going to college? Like, I didn't have to deal with this, so I never had a name, image, likeness agent. I just played, and then when I made it to the pros, I got paid for doing other things, right? What like, just project forward, what do you see that there being some problems with name, image, likeness going to the pros? I mean, going to college.
I mean, one of them would be this, you know, the car dealership in town decides that he wants to have you do something at his car dealership. And he'll, in exchange, he's not going to give you any cash, he's going to give you a car. He'll let you drive a car all year. I'm going to tell you right now, when I'm in college, I could have used that car. Why not? Ernie Bach comes to the best football players and basketball players at BC. Take 5 of you and 5 of you, I'm going to give you a car. No money, but I'm going to give you a car. That's how it worked in the pros. When I got to the Patriots in 1977, I would say most of us on the team had some kind of car deal. We got a car. You know, if you're a college kid, dude, I'm taking a car, right? I mean, well, you probably can't park it on campus. You get too many tickets. But that's just one of the small things. Of, you know, someone just mentioned too, what if you're being recruited down to Kentucky and they got the Corvette sitting out in front? If you come here, you get to drive a Corvette the entire time you're at UK. It could be, I mean, North Carolina, they got great players. I bet they got car dealerships down there. I mean, it kind of worked that way in the pros.
Girls.
Why wouldn't it be?
Boys probably. But I think online is like, yes, so you could be offered stuff, but you got to figure out what it is that you want, because if it's a car you're looking for, then that's a great deal. But that's where you have to be smart, and you have to have some people around you that are looking for your best interests, because a lot of times they will take advantage of the situations. But you got to surround yourself with people that want to see you succeed and also are not looking to take things from you that are in your group, because I think that's where it could get a little tricky as well. Get a good support system around you to help the process.
Do you think that would you have signed with something that didn't necessarily align with your beliefs in college for the money?
You know, probably not. I can't say that for sure. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship, so I had the school paid for, so I was grateful for that. So I don't think I would have just been like, okay, I'll have that too. And now, obviously, being an older person and retired, I've been through it all, I definitely wouldn't line up with something that's not my belief, because when it's not true to you, you're going to have a hard time selling it and being yourself with it, because I think that's where it gets a little difficult. However, if situations of your life need certain dollars and something comes, you're like, you know what, this is not doing this for me, I'm doing this for my family. That's where I think, you know, that's where you have to make the decisions to see where that would work.
How would you promote yourself within the team sport? That's what, I mean,
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do.
No, and I think this is what a little bit tricky. I think we were discussing a little bit before, because I don't even think I could have played soccer during the social media time. Back then when we were playing, we were told, we had a great mental skills coach that worked with us, and she was always like, don't believe anything you read, whether it's good or bad. And I remember during the World Cup in 1999, when we won the World Cup, we were like, don't read the papers. That was our social media.
Why?
Well, because you read a paper and like they say something in there like, oh, well, Kristine wasn't her A game. And then it's in your head like, oh, I didn't play well. So mentally, I think it can get to you. And I think social media can. I mean, I think all of us, it does for me at the age I am, that I see some of this stuff. I'm like, oh, am I not doing more fun things, or am I not doing stuff with my kids, or look what this kid's doing, my kid, you know? So we get caught in that compare world, and I think you have to be careful. And in the team as well aspect is even more difficult, because you're a team, and if one player is out there on social media and constantly like on the sideline, or the phones are around, it draws away from what the team's doing, and can affect the dynamics of chemistry, success. You know, who knows what the role it has within the team if you got some players that are really involved in social media, are making the bucks, are doing all this, and these other players that are working just as hard, or are probably playing better than these players, and you're like, what the heck is that going on? So I think there's many dynamics that can come, and that's where your coach and your leadership of your team needs to be really strong in this aspect to deal with those kind of situations.
How do you think you would handle social media after a bad game?
Not good, no. I think there's an interesting part here. This happens in the pros. Let's say one of the linemen gets a new deal. You know, he's up for a new deal, but the team loves the guy, and he gets a new deal. And we use round numbers. Everyone's making $1 million. They pay this guy $6 million. A lot of guys aren't happy. I could see in college, all of a sudden, some of the stars getting some crazy deals. Next thing you know, the guy's showing up, whoever they're showing up, they got great clothes, got a new car, they got this, they got that. Because let's face it, when you're in college, you're all the same. No one's getting anything. You know, you want another pair of socks, you got to go to the equipment manager and beg for a pair of socks, because it's just you're all equals. It's like no one gets more than anybody else. Now, maybe there's a star or something that gets something, but the boosters aren't allowed to do what they used to do back in my day. So I do really believe it could be still a little dicey. It's just got to be, I think everyone's got to be really careful. And I think it's going to go back to that point of like, what do you really want to do? Like, is it, because here's what I do know. If you're in it for the money, if you're in it only for the money, it's not going to work. It sounds crazy, but it's not going to work. You got to have this like crazy passion for the game. And I think all those other things, and I'll use this example of Peyton Manning. I mean, you know, because we have Tom Brady, we think Peyton Manning's like a stepchild or something, but the guy was amazing. His work ethic was amazing. His commitment to the game was amazing. I don't know if anyone heard his speech, his Hall of Fame speech last weekend, but it was amazing. He's just that kind of person and player. And he did tons of commercials. It had nothing to do with the money. I mean, it sounds like I'm lying, but it really didn't. He just was, it's like Tom. Tom Brady, if you know him at all, he loves football, loves it. Like most guys retire by this time because it's like, they're just tired of being around a bunch of young kids. That's, you know, he's in his 40s. Some of these guys come to the team and they're in their 20s. It's like, the average NFL career is 3.2 years. Goes fast. So think of this in college. If you're in you have an opportunity to do something in college, you have it really in that 3 to 4 year window to make that thing happen, so that you can take that next step. But I would just guard against it being about the money. I think it's just a dangerous, slippery slope, I think.
Do you think that those two do it at any point? Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they do it for the brand, they do it for the money, they do it to build their brand, or you think they're just doing it because they love football?
I think Tom's building a brand. That's a great example. Tom with TB12. Tom has done a great job of building TB12. I think he's looking at it because of his success in TB12, what he's been able to do. And I think a bunch of people questioned it and were like, let me see. But I think it's working. I mean, he's opened up several places. I have a granddaughter who tore her ACL. She's the #1 lacrosse recruit coming out of Rivers last year. She was doing all this training at TB12. It's like on a comeback. You talk to any players that, I'll give you an example. Matthew Slater, who's a special teams player for the Patriots, he fought it for years, and his dad played in the NFL for 20 years. But this guy's he's getting older. Always joints were hurting, pulling muscles. Went on TB12, went on the Tom Brady thing, still going strong. So it's like, I think it's all kind of part of it. It's just he built a brand. Maybe because but he really believes in it. I mean, he truly
That's
believes.
what I was going to say. We talked about you got to believe in what you do, and that's basically what he's living his brand. I mean, he's playing football 43. What is he, 43? And he's doing everything he's putting out there. He's doing himself, so he's a product of it. So I think that goes along with him believing in what his brand is.
Who did you admire? Other athletes you either played with, your same age, or maybe people who came before you?
Well, I think when I was younger, I mean, I was looking up to the male athletes. I was a New York Jets fan and Wesley Walker fan, and I was a Willie Randolph fan, second base for the Yankees. And those are the people I looked up to. And then I made the national team, and I met these women that were just like me, that were hardworking, wanted to rip each other's heads off at practice, sweat and worked hard, and they became like my inspiration. Mia, Julie, Brandy, and all the girls I played with, because we didn't have that. We didn't see it before us. There was Billie Jean King was there, a couple of the tennis players, a couple, maybe some golfers, but there wasn't much out there for the girls to see. But now that's changed for the girls in the room and guys, for you guys to see. Women doing incredible, and I think if you look at this Olympics, the women were doing incredible job winning in track and field, basketball, all these sports. So it's great now to have these players to look up to. Back when I didn't, but then I found my inspiration through my teammates. But just to add a little bit on branding, the time now for social media is so big, but part of my branding, I have my camp, and then I started to, I teach soccer, but then I co-authored a book with two friends of mine that I met in Austin, and this became a tool for me. I do public speaking. Never loved it, but it's something that I started to do. And obviously there's different ways you can public speak. Everyone's like, well, there's this one does it this way, but you got to find who you are. And I do it, who I'm as a person. And this book is my tool, and it gives me some credibility. So it's part of my brand now that I have written a book about teamwork, and I can talk about it because I lived it. And it's all about the U.S. Women's National Team. So there's things that you learn through along the way, and the people that have helped you have helped me create the brand I have with this book. So I think there's lots of elements that can come together for you as individuals, and finding what you love. Tom Brady doing what he's living the game and living, his TB12 brand, and those things really help you to feel like you're doing something that you believe in and you're helping others too.
So I regret not playing for the Italian national team at a young age. I think right when I was in college, I should have worked on my passport and did that. Are there things that you passed up on that you regret? I'm going to go to you too, John.
I would say that I didn't pass up anything. Here's one of the things that this reminds me a little bit of it with college. So when I was with the Patriots, I decided I wanted to be the player rep, to represent. It was the union to represent was for collective bargaining with the owners. I think the challenge here is that there's no one representing you as a whole, which for me, it's a little scary. So, and it was a little scary when I was a player. So what happens is if you were a player rep for the Patriots, any team, if you were a player rep, you were guaranteed of getting traded or cut. It was just the way it was. The owners did not like the fact that they had to negotiate with the players. They just wanted to tell them what to do. And this is how it's going to be. But if you're willing to fight for what you think all we were basically saying was we want a little slice of the pie, because they were making so much money. It's like, why can't we make some of that money? And that was the point. By the way, I did get traded. They traded me from the Patriots to the Raiders, and we won the Super Bowl the next year, so it was fine by me. So, and it was fun playing for the Raiders too, by the way.
You got traded because you were the rep?
Oh, there's no question. Every rep got traded that year. It's just the way it was back then. It was like, you want to be a player rep here, you're going to get cut or you're going to get traded.
So when you got to the Raiders, were you the player rep there?
Oh, no. I liked the Raiders. I wanted to stay there. No, they already had a player rep, so it didn't matter. So, but I think this is a little bit like that, where it's like, but And I think part of it too is that, like, I'll give you an example with my sons. So I have 3 boys. The funny part about it is the best athlete of all of them didn't make it to the. He was a quarterback, wide receiver. He was a phenomenal athlete, but he didn't make it to the pros. Played in college, but at BC, but he didn't play. The other 2 did. So Matthew played a long time. Tim got to play 6 or 7 years, bouncing around. But I always said to them, because they love the game, they're quarterbacks, they love to talk about the game. It actually drives you crazy sometimes about the X's and O's and all this and the weakness. And you don't want to watch a game with them because it drives you nuts. But I said, you don't want to be a coach because your coach, my experience and their experience was coaches just coach all the time. They're never home. It was like just, and so I said, well, why don't you talk about the game? Well, both of them are actually employed by ESPN now. They just talk about the game. If that's something that you want to pursue in the future, start talking about the game. Be a real student of the game. There's a guy on ESPN right now, Dan Orlovsky. Do you know what he's famous for? Running out of the end zone on some play. He really didn't play much, but the dude can talk about football. He's really good about talking about football. So if that's something that interests you, start working at it. Start working at it now. Because trust me, they're looking for people that are really good at it. Because not everyone's very good at it. That's why sometimes you'll see ESPN will have like a star on. Like, oh my gosh, this is like, that dude was amazing as a player. Well, when it comes time to talk about the sport, not very good at it. Like Joe Montana tried it. He wasn't very good at it. Steve Young tried it. He's really good. Ray Lewis tried it for a while. Deion Sanders is pretty good at it. There's a bunch of guys that you could make a living doing that stuff afterwards, and you don't have to stay at the office until midnight breaking down film, right?
I don't have any regrets. I think one thing I would have changed a little bit of, I had my brother be my agent, and he talked about family a little bit. And I had a couple before, and we're talking a time where this was new to all of us, and even the agents that I worked with, not family, it was new to them too for the women's game. And he's a great salesman, he's great, but I think the dynamic of family sometimes is tough. To this day though, I would still call him for some things because he knows how to work a deal. Like, okay, if I want a certain amount of money, he'll say, okay, I'll have him, you do this, and this. He's very good at that. But I wish I changed that a little bit. And then there was one other thing I was just thinking about when I forgot. I would say that was probably the main one.
You have talked about soccer on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like it?
Yeah, see, and I don't like talking about it. I don't overly love to watch it.
I think it's the easiest job in America. It is so easy.
But no, I don't. I mean, I watch the Olympics. I watch all the soccer games, Olympics, World Cup, but I don't overly love it. But like I said, there are good people that can do it, and there's, I don't think I was great because I don't love what I'm doing. So I'd be like, oh yeah, she did that, and then I would be like, crickets, and then I'd go, okay, maybe I should talk some more. So I didn't love it, so I didn't really come across very well.
Yeah, so I don't want to talk you out of being a coach by any means. I'm just saying one of the things that, at least on the football side of it, and I heard it at the Hall of Fame speech the other night, one of the coaches said he apologized to his sons because he never watched them play a down of football. I was like, what? Like, I couldn't even imagine that. It's just something that it's just too important to me. It's just, so that's why I even said it, like my son that lives, he actually coaches a youth football team in Nashville. His son's playing, Nashville's way ahead of us. They're actually playing their first game tonight, so, but he's going to that game. But it's like, there's nothing better as a parent as when you're raising your kids in sports, and you guys know if you do sports, to have your parents at the game. So that's the only reason I'm a little down, because college coaching or college and pro coaching, man, it's a big commitment.
How can athletes authentically engage in sponsorships? How do they network and build? What were you looking for at Reebok where you're like, we gotta get this player?
Well, I think that's good because Justin and I talked about this a little bit. Like, for example, I'll give you an example that when we signed Shaq, Shaq was amazing in college, and it was like the dude was, and if you've never seen the guy, he's massive. I mean, I'm 6'7". I wear a 14 shoe. I could leave my shoes on, put his shoes on over mine. The guy was huge. And I think one of the things that we learned through the product, we weren't selling the amount of shoes that we thought we could sell. And tell me if I'm wrong, Justin, but big guys don't sell shoes. Sounds crazy. That's why when you look at where we transitioned to, we signed Allen Iverson. We sold more stinking shoes with Allen Iverson than you can shake a stick at. And then, then you go back and do the retro stuff, and it's crazy. There's certain people, because of the style of play, I'll use basketball as an example, because of that style of play, they sell stuff. Was a guy who was a great example in football was, until he got himself in trouble, was Mike Vick. Mike Vick sold stuff. His style of quarterbacking, I'm not in the business anymore, but I'm sure that Patrick Mahomes, he sells stuff. He's got a style that sells stuff. And, for a while, and you know what, I'll be honest with you, sometimes it's where you are. Like, one of the things that, here's a good example, Megatron, receiver in Detroit, stuck in Detroit his whole career. It's Detroit. He gets stuck in Cleveland. They go, Odell Beckham was unbelievable in New York City. Well, he goes to Cleveland Browns. They're coming, and people kind of know he's got a brand now, and he's like, but it's like it's not the same as being in New York. Yeah, I look back to this is an interesting one of the times, and I was on the team. I actually played for the Minnesota Vikings too. Peyton, Eli, and Cooper were there because his dad Archie was on the team with me. His dad was a quarterback. When it came time for Eli to get drafted, the San Diego Chargers wanted to draft him. Refused to go there. He ended up going to the New York Giants. New York, mega deal where you get all the stuff that comes along with it. He's a quarterback. Worked out great. Now, back to where we started. Played great, won a couple Super Bowls. He's not as marketable as his brother, but can you imagine being marketable in Indianapolis? He was so good that he became marketable in Indianapolis. This with basketball players. Hey, do you want to go to Milwaukee and play basketball, or do you want to play basketball in LA? It's kind of basketball seems to be that way now where, hey, I'm going to go to the big city where I can get all the juice and make it, be on the right team. So I think it's different for everybody. It's like, did you ever think that you'd be talking about Alabama football? Well, yeah, it's where it is right now.
When Shaq went to LA, did it change for Reebok?
No.
Orlando, LA didn't sell shoes.
He did in Orlando because it was all new and it was different, and we were doing some funny commercials. Because here's the thing that's weird. This is what's really strange now. There was, in these budget meetings, you would have these massive budgets for TV commercials. Massive spending, CBS, NBC, ESPN. Massive spending for Sports Illustrated. ESPN, the magazine. Does anybody here get ESPN, the magazine? Does anybody get Sports Illustrated anymore? It used to be the deal. If your guy was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, think about it. If you were a soccer player on the cover of Sports Illustrated, you guys probably don't even know what Sports Illustrated is. It's like, that's how it's changed. So those budget meetings where it was like, think about it. It's like, well, we're going to spend millions of dollars on a commercial shoot. We're going to spend millions of dollars on the athlete. Or we can spread our millions out and we can go sign a bunch of kids that have great social platforms where they engage with other people about our brand. Here's the CrossFit world. Everybody that's doing CrossFit wants to recover and be in great shape. The amount of drinks and vitamins and powders, I didn't even know that many existed. So the amount of stuff that these kids put in their bodies, and obviously they get tested, so it has to be legal, but it's the same thing. All those companies are doing the same thing. They're not advertising in Sports Illustrated anymore. They're doing it a different way. It's just a different way of marketing to the public, because back to where we started from, we're just trying to sell some stuff.
Why did you write the book?
I wrote the book because I wanted to share our story. So I think for the girls in the room, there's not a lot of females that have books, or I mean, they're starting to be more. But I wanted to share the story of our team, and I think writing this book about the team, it just shows why we were so successful. I mean, the U.S. women's national team has always been in the top 3 of every big world event we've ever played in for over, I mean, I don't know what it is, 25, 30 years. So I wanted to share why that happened, and there were common themes in it. I mean, whether it's chemistry, culture, whatever, all those tactics that we talk about in here, it was always present on the teams. And this Olympics, they got bronze, still top 3. So they still had that. Obviously, they were missing some elements that they couldn't, finish on the field. But I really wanted the story to get out there. And because the time that I spent on U.S. women's national team, we were successful, but it was a great group of women. And when we're talking about branding and we're talking about the national team, in the beginning, I told you, we didn't get paid. We didn't get paid from U.S. Soccer, and then we just started getting some endorsement deals. And then we started to have a players association within the national team because we weren't making money, marketing dollars that U.S. Soccer was making. They were making money off us. We're like, well, hold on, how come we're not getting a piece of this? So we started a players association in that, which we had a rotation through. But then we also, as a team, could make money. So if you had 4 or 5 more of the players in a picture or something, that would go to the team, and we'd split it equally. And to just example of how great these people were that I played with, we have Netflix is doing a movie on the 1999 World Cup team, and they have eight of us that they're kind of putting that we had assigned our our rights to way to do other things, but our team was 22, so they gave us some money, not a lot of money, but from the leadership that we've had, we decided to split the money we got with the other players. So that's what we did as a team. Continuously throughout the years we played together, and I really think that's why we were successful, because it just was never about one player. Mia Hamm was the face of women's soccer, but it never was just about her. And I think the national team became such a attention grabber is because of the personalities we had on the team, but also how we did things. And that's really part of the main reason I wrote the book, to share why we were great and share these people that are just awesome human beings.
Fill in the holes here. The score is tied when you had that header out of the goal. 0-0, 1-1.
0-0.
0-0, 99.
Anyone born in 99? You guys were, no? Yeah. LA, yeah. So 1999 was the World Cup we hosted, and a little bit of history before that. We were hosting the World Cup, and they wanted to put it in like college stadiums and small stadiums. We're like, no, let's go big. So we went to all the football venues, and the start of the World Cup, we're thinking, oh my God, are we going to sell this? Are we marketable? Or is this enough of a brand, this women's national team, that people are going to come watch? And we were scared. We had our first game at Giant Stadium at the Meadowlands, and I said I'm a huge Jets fan. I went there with my dad with season tickets there. And our locker room ended up being the New York Jets, and I take a picture with a throwaway camera. I call my brother. I'm like, I'm in the Jets locker room. It was incredible. And so we're going to that game, and we're getting off the exit, and there's traffic. And anyone that's been through New Jersey or over the bridge, there's always traffic. But it was traffic for our game. We sold out every stadium we played in. The Meadowlands was the biggest crowd to ever watch a game, even any NFL, besides the Pope. So I'll give the Pope some credit. And then we make it to the Rose Bowl final, and it's overtime, 0-0. We're tied against China, and what Scal's talking about, they have a corner kick, and I head the ball off the line, and I keep us in the game, and then it goes to PKs. Whoa.
Corner kick happens.
Yeah.
You're in right place, right time, or where you were supposed to be?
I'm where I'm supposed to be. That's why I wrote this book. It's in there. Yeah, so that attention to detail. I'm always, so if this is the goal, Don's one post, I'm the other post, the ball's coming from here. I'm always on this post. I'm a lefty. And the reason I am, so if the ball comes inside, I can clear it out with my left foot. If I'm on that right post, I use my right foot, which I can use, but on that. And it happens to come to my head and head it off. And we stay alive. We go to PKs. We all make ours. Brandy scores the last one. She rips her shirt off. There's your Brandy market right there. And she makes millions, and we all do really well. But that game changed my life. That because we won that game, I made more money. We all made more money. And we needed to make money. We weren't getting paid that much. So for the girls in the room, the life is different than these guys. The pay scales are different. Obviously, there's a lot of fight from the female sports out there to get more equal pay, but it's about marketing. It's not just about equal pay. It's about what these TV rights are for, like what they're going to cover and who's spending the dollars. So you have to find ways to continue to make us marketable and be in there. And winning is the one way to continue to do it.
Questions?
I think one of the things you talked about now was what makes you marketable. And I think you just spoke about winning. I think winning is the biggest thing. No, I think
Yeah.
about your team.
I'm not sitting here calling Celtic games if we don't win in 08.
I'm just
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to say.
I-
Kevin Garnett is one of the best basketball players I've ever seen play. Would define his career was him winning.
Yeah. Let's not pretend that winning doesn't matter. It does. It does. And a lot of people can pretend and say, oh man, why can't you just love me for participating? When you win, you're in a different category. There's no question about it. You guys feel?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, let's face it, we all live here in New England, you know, so I'm old enough to, when you would go when the days of, you know, I'm one of those guys that the days of McHale and Bird and Parrish and all those guys, I mean, it was awesome. You know, even prior to that, it was Havlicek and those guys. So, but now fast forward to your generation, what's happening in New England. I played for the New England Patriots in a stadium that was called Schaefer Stadium. This place was awful. This is a true story. When I got drafted in the second round from Colorado. I got to the locker room, and I'm walking around. I'm like, where's the weight room? Oh, we don't have a weight room. We're a professional football team without a weight room. It was disgusting. So you fast forward, the Sullivans owned the Patriots back then, but you fast forward to Robert Kraft and being in the right place at the right time. I actually finished my career playing for the New York Giants, and Bill Parcells was the head coach. Linebacker coach and defensive coordinator was a guy by the name of Bill Belichick. This dude had a little notebook in his pocket all the time. He's taking notes, taking notes, taking notes. It was like, and if you could go back and look at some pictures of him, he had a mullet. It was like Lawrence Taylor couldn't believe that he was the D coordinator because I think Lawrence was such a great player and Bill was just such a nerd. But the point is, Kraft found a guy that turned the Patriots into winners. And everybody around the country hates the New England Patriots because they're winners. It's amazing, but it's all about winning. If you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they created a culture of winning. You look at the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's why it's a little frustrating right now for the Dallas Cowboys, because it's like they've always had this culture of winning, because winning, look, you don't need to really, this sounds kind of crazy sometimes, you don't need to market the Patriots when you're winning. Like, you can close the marketing department down practically when they're winning. But as an athlete, as yourself as an athlete, you know, it seems to be like there's a culture of me. It's about me. And I would say the me should be an acronym for maximum effort all the time. That doesn't seem to be the case now. But I'll guarantee you this, if you do that, ask guys like Tom Brady, ask guys like, you know, Steph Curry, asking these great players, how do you get, that's how they became great. He didn't learn to dribble like that because he did it part-time. I have a kid that played with my son at Xaverian, Greg Camello. He went to Stanford. He was telling me a story one time. He goes, you know, we're on our way out to the bars and, you know, Palo Alto, and we see this kid on the basketball court. He's putting. The kid's name was Tiger Woods. He goes, we came back from drinking all night. He was still putting. He was putting on a wooden floor at Stanford. I wonder why Tiger Woods was so good. You know, it's like, I think if you put everything into your sport, you have that attitude, everything else kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, I got a chance to coach Steph Curry, and I played some like serious Hall of Famers. Steph Curry would floor those guys with how hard he worked. Floor them. I'm talking Ray Allen, 5-mile runs before practice, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Rondo, those guys, Derrick Rose. Curry would floor them. And I just found out that Kevin Durant floors Steph Curry in workouts. And Kevin Durant's 7 feet tall, high release. handles, does it all, and he will destroy Steph. And I thought no one could work like Steph. So there's some guys out there really, and some ladies really working. And when you guys see Kevin Durant win the gold medal, that ain't accident. And he'll never lose because he's just that good and he works that hard. That's your branding. To sign for $200 million.
All right, I got this for a second. I'll go through this one. All right. First of all, a round of applause for these guys. That was incredible. I just wanted to take, it's warm, it's hot, but a few more minutes. I want to, I'm going to give the mic to Kellen for a second. I'm going to embarrass the hell out of him right here, and maybe some others, so be ready. But Kellen now is going to be down at Kentucky, played at Davidson. He's been in college now for a few years. What has your experience been in your own mindset of NIL or branding or marketing or yourself, of what you've seen ever since July 1 down at Kentucky?
At least for me personally, I think the biggest takeaway is the work ethic and the winning. Coach Calipari has continuously, reminded us you'll have more opportunities and NIL will take care of itself depending on what we do between the lines. And for me, being at a place like Kentucky, the market and the opportunities are endless. But ultimately, what I'm trying to focus on the most is channeling all those opportunities. And remaining humble with them and taking advantage of the ones that I think are really worth it, and ultimately focusing the most on my work ethic, taking care of my body, and being the best teammate I can be.
All right. Just for the record, last time Kellen and I played one-on-one, I won. That was in the 6th grade, and that's why I stopped playing him. I'm going to do a couple more. Caroline. You're going to be a freshman at UConn. What are you excited about, worried about, anything about kind of going into probably the greatest women's team of all time or school for all time for basketball, kind of going into that environment and expectations?
About NIL or
Just in general, though, kind of being a freshman and now with NIL, but more so just what you want to do.
I think for me, I'm most excited to just be in that environment every day and be able to learn from those coaches and those players and really be challenged every day. We were there for 5 weeks and I've never been challenged in the ways that I was on, off the court, in the weight room, stuff like that. So just getting that opportunity to be able to learn from them in every way that I can, I would say.
All right. Any more questions? I'm going to go for a few more minutes. Thoughts, questions?
Have you ever invited Caroline to SMH?
No, she would kill everybody. So, no, haven't.
How come you haven't come play pickup with us? Really?
Pierre. Oh, well, everybody, welcome Pierre. Pierre's in charge of SMH now. He's the captain, the godfather. I think honestly, for me and tonight is, whether you played in 80s, 90s, 2000s, today, I think that, the world has changed so much and social media has changed and now NIL is going to change. But I think the foundational things that these guys have said, who have lived it and been the most successful that you can be in your sport, right? They have made it to the absolute pinnacle, is the most important thing. And for me, this is more about these guys being able to give you lessons, you guys be able to ask questions, and this isn't kind of, going to be an ISlide thing, but I think for us and for me personally, we have a couple, ISlide interns, back there, Alex and Nate, otherwise known as Mouth and Little Fro. But these guys have come in because they wanted to kind of see what this was all about, and they really are developing NIL with Baz, who's really taken charge of all of this. And I think for us, you saw what Barstool did with NIL, and it sends everybody a t-shirt and says that they're sponsored, right? And for us, you know, we don't want to sign everybody. We want to sign the right people, and we want to be able to do things like this just to be able to help them grow. And no matter what you do, whether it's with ISlide or with anything else, we want to just create platforms and opportunities for you to be able to learn and grow within any way that you want. I mean, I think the one thing that we have is relationships and connections. And I think if we didn't talk about that too much, but these guys have a million relationships and a million connections to be able to get them, you know, where they are today. And I think that's a major thing as you guys continue to grow. So whether you want to do more with ISlide and ISlide U and that what we do, like that's going to be part of it for us, is to be able to help you guys develop your relationships and develop your branding as best we can by putting you with kind of the best people that we know, and we can kind of help you along this journey, because as these guys said, sometimes it's just one or two things that can really, you know, take you from here right to there and be in that right moment at the right time. So I think these guys, I know it's warm, but hopefully we'll stick around for a few minutes, and if you guys have any, you know, personal questions for these guys. But first of all, I want to really thank these guys.
Justin, let me say this. The other thing is, I think you need to be aware of, I don't think the schools completely understand exactly how it's going to work. So I think as they start to work through this, like I'll give you an example. So Adidas could easily say, it could be an Adidas team. Adidas could come to the athletic director or whoever and say, look, we would like to use one of these players as an endorsement for the Adidas brand. Like, it could happen. I don't know, but I mean, I'm trying to play devil's advocate and say, thinking, if I'm on the Adidas team, heck yeah, I'm going to go find. I'm going to scour our players on all of our Adidas teams and say, why not? Because I'm going to tell you something right now. When you sign a professional player, it's expensive, very expensive. I don't think it's going to be as expensive signing a college player. So if I got a budget, let's say my budget's, it's called $1 million. I can spread it out amongst a couple hundred college players versus one football player in the pros. So just be aware of, I just think you need to be just alert and aware to any opportunities that could potentially happen. I mean, here's the thing, Boston College, just the football team in basketball is Adidas, and everything else is New Balance. Well, I know this, New Balance is going to be very aggressive on all the other sports. Why not? They're minor sports, but if you're an athlete and there's an opportunity for you there, of course. So I would my recommendation to everyone is just kind of like, have big ears, listen a lot to find out kind of what's going on, and maybe not jump on everything so quickly, because there are going to be opportunities, and again, right back to the beginning, be great, and guess what? The opportunities, you'll be saying no to them. I know this, and this is through my son. You can be asked to do so many things that it just gobbles up your time, and you know what? If you're like some of these basketball players and you sign a giant contract, you don't really want to do any of that other stuff. So just be great.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. I figured this is our first one ever. So I'm just going to do something. I'll do something crazy just to end it all out. Who thinks they're the best shooter here? Really? All of these athletes, nobody. Mouth, you can't put your hand up. Who over here? Anybody? Caroline, you had your hand up? Okay. All right. We're going to end with this. One shot, three-pointer. You make it, I send everybody a code for a free pair of ISlides. You miss it, everybody gets a free coaster. All right? Here you go. Yep, you're up. That's automatic. You can pick anywhere you really want to go. And we've got the whole three-point right here.
Oh, that's automatic.
Should we give her a warm-up or no warm-up?
No warm-up.
What?
Warm-up.
You getting the ball?
Just like a couple passes, that's it.
What do you think? Two warm-ups and thirds a charm?
What would you want, Justin?
Two warm-up shots, Third one counts. All right? First two, no. First two are warm-ups. They do not count if they go in. I have confidence that Caroline can make 1 out of 3, so we'll make it count. All right, 2 warm-ups. You might want to watch your waters. Here we go. Okay, for all the money. It's coming out of your budget, Baz. Oh! Ah! All right, that's coming out of Baz's budget. Nice job. All right, thank you guys very much for coming. I got to get all your emails now, so maybe that was a way to get all your emails, I guess. But hopefully these guys can stick around for a few minutes. And again, thanks all for coming.